And I'm going to go ahead and hand things off to Cassandra today.
Thank you, Amy. Well, like Amy said, my name is Cassandra Dunham, and I'm with the Regional Planning Commission. And I am going to share with you all today a little bit about our Incumbent Worker Training Grant and how you can access it for trainings you may have, that Parkland may have that you want to send your employees to, or any type of off-site training, I should say, nothing in-house. All right, so we'll get started. Didn't move. There we go. All right, so first off, an incumbent worker training, it comes from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. The goal there is to build and maintain a quality workforce and increase the employer and the employees' competitiveness within their industry. It's a type of work-based training and upskilling to ensure that the employees have the skills necessary to be competitive in their occupation and their industry, maybe move up to if they're entry level, maybe train, then move up to mid-level and then farther on. And that allows the company to backfill with their current good employees and then bring in more entry-level employees. The main thing with this funding is that it is here to avert potential layoffs, meaning if you aren't able to skill your line technicians and you have to shut down a line in your company, if you're a manufacturer, this funding could come in to train some current staff for you to be able to run that line, and then you could hire new entry-level employees. So that's what we mean by layoff aversion. For an incumbent worker is employed full-time with a company and they've been there at least 6 months. That is the general rule with this funding. However, we do have a waiver from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity until July 2028. So what that means is normally with incumbent worker training funds, at least half of the group of employees that you'll send to training needs to be with the company at least 6 months or longer. However, with this waiver, you could hire 5 new entry-level people and then next week put them into training at Parkland or an apprenticeship, and they would fall under this incumbent worker category because of the waiver. We would be able to pay for their training. An incumbent worker also needs to lack technical skills to retain their current position. So maybe you've hired people and they didn't quite meet the skill level needed for the things that they're doing, or new technology, new information has come out within your industry, and now you need to upskill to maintain company's competitiveness. Therefore, you need to retrain your employees. And then if they need technical skills to enter a new occupation, briefly, like I mentioned before, and I think it goes to the next slide, if you lose like a robotics tech or a manager and you weren't planning on it, you don't have anybody to put into that position, but say you have a current lower level staff, they have, good work ethic, they come to work on time, they don't call off, and you're like, wow, he's got some potential for this occupation, but he doesn't have the skills, he would definitely be a good candidate, he or she, for incumbent worker training funds. So the purpose, kind of touched on this too, it's responsive to the special requirements of an employer or group of employers in a partnership with other entities for the purpose of delivering training. So what that means, let's say we have one employer and they have 3 people that they need specific training for. However, Parkland can't create a class for only those 3 people. And maybe you've realized this when classes started and there are no seats available to get your employees in. That's when we could reach out to other employers or Parkland and say, are other employers experiencing this? Do they need this training? And then by joining together with other employers, you're able to fill a class specifically for whatever the training, whatever the technology may be. So you can band together and do that as well. Again, the purpose is to avert potential layoffs of employees. So we don't want to see the company struggle because they don't have skilled workers. That's all that means. And then we want to increase the skill levels of the employees for training. So whatever the training is, it needs to be technical skills, not soft skill based. We want to see them at least get some sort of credential, whether that is just a certificate of completion or it could be an industry recognized credential or a journey worker certificate, whatever that may be. This funding is for our target sectors locally. So this means this funding is available all across the United States, all across Illinois. Each area is grouped by counties. So my office covers Champaign County, Ford County, Douglas County, Iroquois County, and Piatt County. Within those 5 counties, we look at the data from IDS, and then we determine what our target industries are, the biggest ones, right? And this is what this sheet is. So we've got manufacturing, healthcare, logistics, construction, and ag tech are the big ones in our area. And then business services is really a super sector, and it goes into all different sectors. Business services, it could be HR, it could be your accounting, in any other sector. So business services is going to touch all of those. All right, evaluation criteria for training. Training needs to address a job-specific skills gap and result in a credential increase in pay, promotion, increased productivity, and competitiveness for the employer and the employee. So meaning that if we have a manager and they've already got, their MBA and they've had experience, he's not going to be a good candidate for leadership training or management training, things of those nature. But if he was going from, say, accounting in one company to accounting in another, there may be a skills gap there depending on how different those companies were. And that's kind of what we mean by skills gap. A better analogy are the 3 examples on the slides. It could be taking a medical assistant and training them to become a CNA, or assembly line, just the hands-on, I don't know what they're called, everything in different manufacturing, but a step under the operator, just a regular team member, and making them an operator. Or it could be any industry recognized credential, anything with the ISO certifications, Six Sigma, Lean, things like that are going to increase the competitiveness of your company. All those things would fall under that evaluation criteria and be allowable. The projects that allow an employer to create new jobs, create opportunity for backfilling, and or result in layoff aversion are given preference. And that is just there because these funds are first come, first serve. Our area has typically gotten about $80,000 specifically for incumbent worker training funding. So that means between 5 counties, I have $80,000 available to all of those employers who need training. So if I got 5 projects in that were really similar, we would then break it down and say, well, which projects hit, the very top of our criteria? Who's getting the best credentials? What's the biggest layoff risk and need? And we would go from there. These are all the costs that are eligible for reimbursement through this grant. Tuition, school and fees, books, materials, and supplies. If it's required for the course, it's going to be allowable under this grant. Pre and post testing cost, if there's vendor contractor training costs or travel expenses for trainers, we would be able to pay the travel costs associated with the trainer's fees. However, if you were to send your employee to Chicago or St. Louis or somewhere for training, we could not reimburse those training costs. But you do get credit for those in a different way, and we'll get to that, I think, on the next slide. And then any fee for technical or professional certifications and refresher courses for occupational certifications as well are allowable with this grant. So the employer match requirement is part of this reimbursement grant. So any employer that receives funding is required to pay a non-federal share. It's called a match, and it is based on how many employees that you have at the location where the training will occur. So it's not like company-wide, every single employee, it's just the brick and mortar count on where the training is going to occur. So right there, less than 50 employees, 10% total training match, and then 50 to 100 is 25, and then more than 100 is 50% of the training cost. And this next slide, I think, will help you understand that a little better. So let's say you have a $10,000 training. If your match is 50%, then you can either just pay your $10,000 training costs directly to Parkland, and then you're going to send me that invoice and a copy of the payment that's been made, whether it's the front and back of the check showing it cleared the bank, whatever that is, so that I can see that training has been paid for. Then at that point, I would reimburse the company 50% of the $10,000. So $5,000 you would get back right away. The second option is you can recoup the 100% cost of training, the total $10,000, if you plan on paying your employees for their time spent in training, or if they need to travel for training and you're paying their hotel stay or mileage, whatever that is. Then you would need, if the training is $10,000, you would need to show me wages in the amount of $5,000 or associated training costs, whether that's travel, lodging, mileage, in the amount of $5,000, because that is your match amount. And at that point, then I would reimburse the company the whole $10,000 for the total amount of training. This one just kind of reviews reimbursement. Reimbursement, everything needs to be submitted for reimbursement. Now, I will say this is flexible, especially when I have companies that I've worked with in the past couple years. We are able to, as soon as you issue payment to a training provider, reimburse you. However, then if these follow-up things don't happen, that's probably not going to happen again. We would just revert back to before reimbursements happened. I would need to see all these documentations, which is the employee sign-in sheet, employee training outcome, match letter, and credentials. Usually the employers I work with are pretty on top of it, so we haven't had to enforce this at all, but it is there because it is our standard reimbursement process. The IWT process is pretty simple. I broke it down into 3 steps, and I do a lot of the paperwork. So the first step is completing your IWT proposal and training plan, and it is just an application. You fill out basic company information on it, and then the training provider normally sends whatever the training is, a little blurb, or little, it's an outline, what the goals are, what are you going to learn, what are your takeaways going to be. And then the company completes W-9 and a new vendor form and send those to me. At that point, I review everything, and then I write up an action memo that goes to the program manager and director. They review and say yes or no, based on our local policies. And then at that point, if they say yes, it then goes off to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity at the state level, and they look over the project and do the same thing. Once step 1 is done, then we're going to complete an incumbent worker training contract, which just says this is how much money you're getting, these are our responsibilities, and here are yours. Any employee that goes to training is going to complete a participant form, and that allows us to collect some demographic information on them. Part of this Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding is to target certain populations that can often be overlooked. So we'll collect that sheet. It also requests their social security number, because this is how we tie and track employees in training to ensure that we don't have an employee going from this company to that company and then getting the same training multiple times, if that makes sense. And then quarterly progress reports happen throughout the life of the training, whether it's a year long or 2 years long. Every 3 months, I'm going to send you, it's like a front and back, and there's like 5 writing prompts, and you kind of just tell me what's going on with the project. I think there's an additional slide, so I won't go too much there. And then that third step is, once training is complete, I'm going to send you an employee training outcome sheet, just an Excel spreadsheet that'll have all the employees' names on it that attended training. And then there's probably 6 or 7 questions, and you're going to click yes or no. Are they still employed? Did they get a certificate? Did they get a raise? Things like that. And then also I'll send you the prepped match letter, and proof of payment will be yours, but the match letter will come to you. It will be typed up, and you'll just copy and paste it on your company letterhead and send it back along with proof of payment, the employee sign-in sheets, and then all of the certificates. And at that point, then reimbursements would occur. So IWT monitoring, this is specifically those quarterly reports that you complete throughout the duration. Again, they're pre-filled, so with writing prompts, you just kind of answer the writing prompt and then sign a date. So we want to know, is everyone attending over the last 3 months? Have you met your match hours? What does that look like? What's the status? Are we on track? Are we behind? Are we ahead? Any outcomes you've noticed, whether they've completed a certain training course or they are now able to work on this machine, whatever it may be. Any progress, any obstacles. benefits to the company and the employee, and then where they're at in their courses. How close are they to finishing? Are they having any other struggles? Things like that. Those are the things that we like to monitor. And then this one is kind of just a reminder, if you're looking to apply for funding, these are the things the workforce board is going to consider. Like I said, we get a limited amount of funding, and it is first come, first serve. So if we were to get a bunch at the same time, we would have to decide who gets the money. And this is what we're going to base that on, this slide here. So the characteristics of the individuals in the program, what are the demographics, what types of people are we serving? Does the training improve labor market competitiveness for employees and employer? Is the training cost at least $2,500? This is the minimum cost in our area. So if you have training and it's only going to cost you $2,000, it's not going to qualify for this funding. In those situations, what I normally will ask the employer is if they have any other training planned for the rest of the year. Because we can work out your yearly training goals and a total cost for that, and then we can put it all into one funding request and then just work through each training as we go. But that ensures that you get grant funding. And then they will also look at the wage and benefit levels pre and post training. So are they going to get a raise or promotion? What other training and advancements are provided by the employer? Credentials and skill gains, any layoffs averted, and then just be specific about any issues that require financial resources for resolution. So if you have, say you have clients that you serve, and the client has said, well, we need you to have these specific certifications because we see that this other company has them, and we really want to do business with a company that has this ISO or this industry recognized credential. If that's the case, that training is probably going to fall under incumbent worker training, because you, the company, are at risk of declining sales if you don't reach the demands of your clients, what they need to do business with you. I think that is the end. I know I gave you a lot of information. Some of you are probably familiar with this grant. Some of you may not be. So are there any questions over the few slides that I just went through? And if there isn't, that is okay. And I'm going to hand it right back to Amy.
Thanks so much, Cassandra. We do have several employers on the call who have experience using that funding. So if anyone would like to share that experience or talk about the process, certainly love to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, right on.
Not chatty today. That's okay. Well, then let's go ahead and get Madeleine queued up. And I will add, though, that right now Regional Planning Commission is paying for almost all, if not all, of Parkland's registered apprentices. So that's been one really great benefit and strong partnership there between Parkland and RPC. And it's a great way to get a program like that off the ground so that you can realize the benefits of it before that you're taking on that cost, that full cost as an employer. Madeleine from Small Business Development Center, please take it away.
Good morning. So thank you so much, Amy. Does everything look okay? Sharing went
Looks
well?
great.
Great, thank you. So thank you all for having me. Apologies if I'm not enunciating my consonants too well. We're recovering from the flu over at my family's home. So stay safe out there. Wash your hands. So I am Madeleine Wolske. I'm the director of the Illinois Small Business Development Center at the Champaign County Economic Development Corporation. Previously, I've been a small business owner where I organized large-scale events for the city of Urbana, and have always been very active within community investment, making sure that people are utilizing resources. A big thing I like to do is just essentially connect individuals to resources. So Cassandra's topic about the workforce training, worker training, that's something that I love to hear about and pass it along to all of our clients. So at the SBDC, if you're not aware of what we do, we're an organization that is funded in part at the federal level, so the Small Business Administration. That funding then goes to the state level, so we get funding from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and then that's trickled down to the local level. So we're hosted at the Champaign County Economic Development Corporation, but we also receive funding from our local municipalities and cities. So we do serve Champaign County, but we actually have clients from around the state. Right now, we have people from 16 counties who we service. And what we essentially do is provide services for small business owners. In addition to just kind of general business services, I'm going to touch base on two of our partners that are more specialized. So we have our International Trade Center. So if you know anyone who's interested in doing any sort of international exporting or importing, or if you're like, hey, how do I navigate changing laws? What is that going to look like for my company? Am I ready to start importing or exporting? We have a specialist, Beatrice Ramirez, who can walk you through how to do that. She's also fluent in Spanish too. So if you know people who are interested in maybe starting, growing a business, but maybe English is not their first language, you can always, and they speak Spanish, we're more than happy to help serve. We also have recently our Illinois Apex Accelerator. So Kelly Kruger-Hura is our director. Excuse me. And so that's also located at the Champaign County EDC. But if you are interested in procuring or contracting, so maybe you, your business or someone else's business you know is interested in doing business with Parkland, the U of I, the state, local, or federal government, Kelly can walk you through all of those steps of ensuring that you're compliant, you're ready to pitch, and you also have the capacity able to take on a lot of those contracts. She also does a lot of assisting with if you know someone who is interested in getting minority business certified or someone who needs to get their SAM.gov number, she can walk you through those steps. So a lot of stuff so far, but generally we are here to help people start their new business, grow their business, hire employees, train employees, expand, sell, you name it. When you think of us, I want you to think of just the entire business life cycle and know that we are a resource to help. And because of that generous funding I had mentioned earlier from the federal, state, and local governments, all of our services are completely no cost and also completely confidential. One thing we know is that starting a business and owning a business is very much like having a child. It is your baby, and we absolutely respect the need for confidentiality with our clients. So general business advising is what I provide at the SBDC. We also have an additional small business advisor, Beth Patterson, who assists me with this. But this is where we, looking at that life cycle again, what sort of research do we need to do? Cassandra had mentioned maybe pulling up some research to support essentially filling out this paperwork. That's something that we can help you with. So if you need to do any industry surveys, hey, do an assessment on your competitors around town. What are services that they're providing to their employees that maybe you're considering on doing? We can assist you with market research. That also extends to customer identification, demographic targeting. Again, background as a librarian. So anytime you guys want to talk data, I'm really into that. We also assist with marketing strategies, and that's digital or analog. Business plan development is our big one. But especially access to financing and funding. The biggest issue that people run into when they want to start or grow their business is lack of capital. And a lot of times I have clients who are interested in hiring individuals, but we need money in order to do that. So we help them connect them to resources available through maybe RPC, We have lots of local connections with lenders and banks, help them write their business plan, but also make sure that they're doing so in a way that's sustainable, that they can safely manage the money after they've gotten it, and also train maybe these new employees that they've hired. So we also assist with some HR in terms of business development. We are not HR professionals, but that's something that we've done with several clients, is create employee manuals. How do we train them? What is the type of employee that we want to hire? And then lastly, our two things that we do is provide business education and training opportunities, which I'll go into a little bit later. And then we also have a huge network of resources in terms of professionals around our local area, but also throughout the whole state of Illinois. So there are over 50 different SBDCs in Illinois. Each center has their own respective advisors and directors. All of us have different skill sets. If I know someone who's interested in opening up a franchise, that's not something I have any personal experience with, I can connect them to another advisor who does. So becoming a client and utilizing the services at the SBDC opens up people to a wealth of resources. So our training, I always like to kind of harp on it, and it's interesting. We do, our audience is definitely individuals who are entrepreneurs or who want to be an entrepreneur, but we have a lot of marketing workshops. Most of them are taught by Scott Clannon of Clannon Creative. And a lot of the people there are actually, they're not starting their own business. They're actually marketing professionals who want to learn from Scott. So that's something fun that I've kind of noticed. But we do have a lot of training workshops and a variety of advising topics, but this is kind of what we mainly focus on, is a lot of that startup assistance. We focus so much on that because our bread and butter are really our one-on-one business advising services, where that earlier slide where I talked about what we did, everything is tailored to what that person needs at this specific time. In addition to workshops that are educational, we also have some marketing programs. So for example, we had some funding where we were able to connect clients to getting a brand jumpstart. And this is actually an example that a client was able to receive, where we prepaid for clients to get their own logo done and brand kit done. We also had some website and social media audits, but this is something that our clients are able to access. And it's been really beneficial for them. In addition to this prepaid program, we also have partnered with Parkland. So for some of our clients who are interested in maybe taking accounting fundamentals, or they want to learn more about best ways to market, they want to learn how to best use Excel sheet. Honestly, any of the community classes over at Parkland are amazing and really relevant for our clients. So we do have like a specific code that we've prepaid for them to take advantage of that learning opportunity. We're very thankful for that relationship. Additional resources that we have here. I had mentioned the databases, and I'm sure, what we can get for you isn't just industry research. It would actually be probably really relevant to your respective company. And I know also, I think Amy, you had mentioned earlier, you're collaborating with GEES students. We have a lot of great relationships with the business librarians over at the university, and they're always happy to help collaborate and provide data grabs for your businesses or organizations. It's really beneficial working with us because we are placed really advantageously, not only within the Economic Development Corporation, but we also have workshops and lots of ties with the University of Illinois. So GEES being one of them, the College of Advertising and Design. We collaborate with them to make sure that our clients and people who aren't clients can access some of the brand students' resources and skills. And we also have lots of workshops that we do in collaboration with Research Park. In addition, we also have a grant from the Illinois Institute of Rural Affairs that's still ongoing right now through one of our SBDCs at Western Illinois University, where they provide valuation services. If you know anybody who's looking to sell their business, that is a great resource. We love working with our community. We really pride ourselves in the fact that all of the survey respondents, and we're always working on increasing the amount of people who respond to the surveys that we do provide, but all of them rate our services as excellent and extremely likely to recommend to others. So we really pride ourselves on being able to provide customized, personalized experiences and help people succeed with their business. So essentially, we're here to help empower businesses or individuals to become business owners. We're here to support small business owners as they become employers, as they create new jobs. And we're also here to help. I know a lot of the people here service individuals who are employers or maybe people who want to become self-employed. So a lot of our services overlap, and we're happy to be a resource. So if you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out. You can always connect with me via email here. But any questions about what we do? Great.
I just have one comment. I've learned so much, Madeleine. I had no idea how many services that you had available. So I'm definitely going to be following up with you to learn more and see how we could possibly collaborate.
Yeah. No, we love working with Parkland. And also just if people are interested in, we do a lot of, so for example, with the Housing Authority of Champaign County, we have Starting Your Business in Illinois workshops that we provide to their clientele that I make sure is tailored to the audience who's participating in them. So we're always happy to collaborate, share resources. Something to build off of what Cassandra had mentioned. I'm sure you all are maybe aware of the there's a grant out of DCEO right now for small business owners. And a lot of small business owners get really intimidated at the thought of having to fulfill the grant, like the back end, what all is required of them. So that's something that we can provide assistance with too, not only in applying for these grants and being someone who's, hey, here's the technology at the library on how to apply, but also here's best practices, here's what will be required of you if you receive this grant. But yeah, our services are, it's hard because there's so much that we do. So I always try to just say it's personalized to what someone needs. And a lot of the times people don't know what they need, which is normal and fine. And it's our job to connect them with the right resources and information.
Cassandra, I'm not sure how much you're able to share, but I'm wondering if you have any project examples that you could talk about.
Sure. I can talk about Vita Bottega. They have had a couple projects with us, successful ones. So Vita Bottega is a automotive. They do like wrap and window tinting, and it's over on Moreland Boulevard, I think, and the Champaign Auto Mall. So it's kind of hidden back there. So they are sending technicians and have been to 3M, which is a huge company. They do like, we use all the stuff like the Velcro and the tape, those, what are those, the wall hangers called that you can put on and then just pull, what are those called? Those magic
Command
things.
strips?
Command strips.
Command strips.
Yes. So 3M, that's 3M, command strips, but they do all kinds of things. And part of that is like wrap, paint protection, and window tinting and all of the body work. So they won an award because 3M acknowledged them as like in Central Illinois as the premier company. And then they in turn wanted to send more technicians up there and cross-train their workers so that when work slowed down in one department, they could then just, instead of laying off those workers in that department, they could just have them go work in the department that is busier that time of year. So, and this was a training that occurred in Chicago. So they contacted me, we filled out their application. I don't remember, they probably received maybe 35,000 from us over the years. And they send their employees up to Chicago to 3M, they get trained, and they come back down, and then now they don't have to lay off. They don't have seasonal workers anymore because everybody can be full-time because they're all cross-trained. So that was their big success story, and one of the employers that I can talk about.
I love that business model. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Madeleine, how do you feel like people get to you? How do they find you?
Yeah, so majority of our clients, because we track this data, it's mostly word of mouth. We don't do a lot of marketing of our programs aside from our workshops that we promote and provide. We have a lot of community partners who also put them on their bulletins, marketing materials. But the cool thing about the SBDC, again, it's a federal program. So if someone may have lived somewhere else, if you just do a Google of small business assistance, I mean, after a couple of the advertised posts, we're usually there as well. And it's been nice too. A lot of people who find out about, TikTok trends or stuff on YouTube of this business they want to start, a lot of times people will say, hey, go to your local SBDC for assistance. So that's a huge power of the SBDC, is the fact that it is a federal program.
That's awesome.
And I think I've asked you this before, Madeleine, but are there any costs associated with this if somebody comes to you?
There are no costs. We can't say free because it's not as classy as no cost. But all of our services are completely paid for. And that's something that really sets our center apart from a lot of others. You might find, like, I know outside of St. Louis, their center, they provide training where they have community members pay for it. But everything that we have provided, and if I have anything to do with it, we'll continue to provide, will be completely no cost for our community members.
Yep. And then Amy had mentioned that some of this funding is great for if you're wanting to start an apprenticeship because you see that need, whether it's retention rates or whatever it is, and you see the need for an apprenticeship program within your company. Funding is out there to kickstart those costs. So I can share a little bit about Berkey's Farm Store. Their corporate headquarters is here in Champaign. They kicked off their apprenticeship with Parkland. They had funding ready to go to pay for it. That funding fell through unexpectedly. So Parkland, being a great partner, Amy reached out and said, do you guys have any funding? We're in a pickle and these kids are going to get dropped from their classes. So at that point, we were able to go to the state, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and ask for emergency funding for this apprenticeship. And that emergency funding, it was like $288,000 to cover these apprentices through their whole program. So if you're wanting to start an apprenticeship, but you're not sure what the ROI is, you're not sure if you have startup costs to take this risk financially, reach out, because aside from incumbent worker training funding, the state has funding, DCO, the federal government has apprenticeship specific funding specifically to get these programs off the ground. So if you're apprehensive about starting one because you don't know the ROI and the financial commitments that come with that, give us a shout. Between, I think, me, Madeleine, and probably the EDC, there's funding out there to get your first cohort paid for. We just have to find it for you.
And Cassandra, what is the name of that funding, or the type of funding that is that you were talking about?
It's 1E. It's a lot of time it's referred to like rapid response. Essentially, it's emergency funding with DCEO.
Right.
And the idea behind that was a big layoff aversion, because that is the key to that fund. Yes, it was an emergency fund, but we still have to look at the layoff aversion. So because those students were already employees of Berkey's and they were in their training and the way that that apprenticeship was designed, essentially that would have been a big layoff. Those kids would have lost their jobs and their training or had to take out student loans. And those were all indicators that that cost was going to be allowable and it was an emergency. And that's how we accessed it, because we could point to and say, well, this is what's going to happen down the line if we don't fund these apprentices now.
And I have one more funding option I can talk about specific to apprenticeship, and that is the Illinois Apprenticeship Education Expense Tax Credit. So if you have as an Illinois employer paying Illinois business income taxes, if you have a registered apprenticeship program, then anything you pay to Parkland or another training provider that's approved within Illinois can be reimbursed. No, I'm sorry, not reimbursed to you. It can be part of a tax credit for you on your Illinois income taxes to reduce your taxable income. And that is up to $3,500 per apprentice per tax year. And if you or the apprentice, if your headquarters or the apprentice are located in what's considered an underserved area, that goes up to $5,000 per apprentice per tax year. And so it's interesting how the tax years then layer with the academic years. So if you do have a program that includes a certificate or a degree or a student who's going to be in school for a while, that can really add up, because we're looking at January to December for the tax year versus August to May for the school year. So we can maximize that. But that does have to be money that the employer has paid to the training provider on behalf of that apprentice's training. So that's another opportunity.
And that's a good point. Yep. Because you could get that tax credit, and then you could also get funding from me to offset tuition, and you can what do we like to say?
Braid.
Braid. Yes.
Yes, I jokingly call Cassandra Cashandra. We love to find money for people and spend other people's money to help you all. So it's a lot of fun. Well, other questions for today before we wrap up? Thank you all for joining us. Big thank you to Cassandra and Madeleine for the great information that you shared today. So appreciate your time. And yeah, reach out to these folks if you'd like. You can always connect with me if you need me to connect you with someone else or want to follow up. And we will have the recording of this session up on our website in a couple of days. If you want to refer back to it or share with colleagues, please do so. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Amy. Have a good day,
Thank
everyone.
you. This was so interesting. Thanks.